Good evening, guys. Welcome back to another ESPN video from AFCON, reporting live from Rabat this time. We've been in Marrakesh, Tangier, Fez, all across the country, but this time we're finally in Rabat as we get to the business end of the tournament, semi-finals and final season. I'm joined by two of ESPN Africa's heavyweights, man. Ed Dove, Colin, Udoh, two of the GOATs. Thank you guys for joining me. We're going to preview a couple of both semi-final games, and we're going to start with Senegal versus Egypt. Now, this is a massive game. We were just saying before, it's a repeat of the 2021 final, the Salah Mane storyline. There's a lot of storylines going on in this game. But Ed, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this game, man? I know it's Senegal 1-0 win in the previous round, and Egypt had a bit more of an interesting game, we should say, 3-2 win over Ivory Coast. What are your thoughts going into the game, man? Who do you see as the favourites?
Yeah, it was interesting a bit because Senegal have been quite exciting in the group stage, putting 3 past Botswana, 3 past Benin, then 3 past Sudan in the last 16. And then they had this quite kind of gritty 1-0 victory over 10 men of Mali. Whereas Egypt, it was the opposite. They'd been kind of quite gritty, quite dour during the group stage, and then had this pulsating 3-2 victory over defending champions Ivory Coast in the last 16. So these two have had quite interesting journeys to this point in the Nations Cup. For me, I would say Senegal are my favourites. I think they've got much more depth in attack. They've got much more balanced midfield. They're a much more competent, and I think a team who have different ways of hurting you, a coherent team. Like I've been really impressed with Crepin Diatta at right back, formerly a winger, now converted to a right back, who's also supporting what is a very multifaceted attack. Egypt don't really have that layer of different ways that can hurt you. They've obviously got Salah, they've got Marmoush, Emmanuel behind them was impressive in the quarterfinal. But apart from that, it's quite a solid, stodgy, workman-like team. But you can just never rule them out because they just know how to win. So I'm going Senegal, but I wouldn't be surprised if Egypt found a way, as they always seem to do.
I agree. I think that's been the tale of the two teams. What is your thoughts on that, Colin?
Oh, I don't disagree. The thing about Egypt and AFCON is that they're just a different animal when they get to these knockout stages. I think Egypt and Cameroon are kind of similar in that sense. Even when they start slow and you think that they're like one goal away or a minute away from getting eliminated in group play, they kind of find a way to get back in it. And then when they get into those knockout stages, they just seem to turn into a different animal entirely. So when Ed talks about Senegal having so many weapons and so many ways to hurt you, that's completely true. The thing is, Egypt have only one way to hurt you, and that's just by being Egypt. You know, once they get there, and there's a reason why they've been to 10 finals and won 7 of those. And you just can't rule them out when they get to this stage of the competition, because the moment I saw that game when they got past Cameroon, I'm thinking, yeah, they're back. It's just like when you listen to John Wick say, "Yeah, I'm back." That's exactly what how Egypt looked in that game, because I saw them like, "Oh no, there they go again." So yeah, I think that as much as I agree with Ed, wow, things will be flying somewhere. I fancy Senegal. I do think that Egypt are quite capable of going all the way to the final, and when they get in the final, oh my word, you don't want to bet against them.
So is it what I'm drawing from this, guys, is like Senegal probably do have the better team on paper, probably the better squad overall, but Egypt's experience might be what gets them over the line in this game. Is that fair to say, do you reckon, guys?
I think experience is part of it. It's just they know what they're good at. They play to their strengths. The defensive unit is solid. They know how to manage games, which I'm not saying Senegal don't, but it just makes Egypt a team who are often better than the sum of their parts. But that's almost doing them a disservice, because actually Marmoush, I think, has been one of the more eye-catching players at this tournament. I think I love how he's so his first thought is always go towards goal. His first thought is always turn and attack. He's obviously got the pace. He's obviously got the dribbling ability. Finishing is a bit wayward, but he's just a handful. He's dangerous in tandem with Salah, who's scored several match-winning goals during this tournament. He can drift in and out of games. We know this so well by now. But when it comes to that big moment, he's got something. So I don't want to say Egypt are just about the experience or they're just lucking their way through. That would be too simplistic, but they just know how to manage games. And when things are going against them, like was the case against Africa a little bit, they still got over the line. Against Ivory Coast, during the final, maybe 20 minutes, you didn't really think that Ivory Coast were going to find that equalizing goal because Egypt just managed the game so effectively, knew how to waste time, knew how to slow things down, all the little tricks. And it's why you can't rule them out, even though, as you said, on paper, Senegal have the more varied, diverse, and cohesive team.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I've noticed watching Egypt throughout the years and throughout this tournament, especially. They are somewhat masters of the dark arts in a sense. I just want to touch on as well. Obviously, the old Mane Salah. How will that kind of play its part in this game? What do you think, Colin?
Oh, of course, always. I mean, teammates they might have been, but the rivalry is still there, and we saw Mane get one over Salah the last time they met. So there is definitely motivation for Salah to want to do the same thing. And he's talked about it, I mean, a lot, that he wants to win the Africa Cup of Nations. I think that's the only, apart from the World Cup, that's the only other thing that he doesn't have in his collection. So, and being from Egypt, and being the star player for Egypt is almost like, it's almost like a birthright, so to speak, in quotes. Like he's required to win the Africa Cup of Nations. And so that's part of the motivation that, we're driving Salah. He goes into that matchup with Sadio Mane. And of course, he's got Hossam Hassan, who knows how to win the Africa Cup of Nations. So, look, like I said, if Egypt get past Senegal, there's no betting against them.
Yeah, we did a piece on ESPN where we spoke to some Egyptian journalists, and we basically asked them, Salah's legacy, how much does he need the Nations Cup? And the answer was very clear. There's no doubting he's one of Egypt's greatest ever players. There's no doubting that he's going to be remembered for what he's done at Liverpool, for what he's done in the Champions League and the Premier League. But at the moment, he's not going to be remembered for what he's done in Africa, for what he's done in the Nations Cup, even though he did end Egypt's 3-decade wait to reach the World Cup when they qualified in 2018. He was outstanding during the qualifying campaign. But as yet, he's not done it at the Nations Cup. He's not brought home a star, the title, which, as Colin said, is almost a birthright for Egyptian players. So I think Salah needs this more. Mane's already done that. Salah has never done that. It would be such a gap in his resume, a failure of his career, if he wasn't able to get over the line in the Nations Cup. I think the rivalry between the two players obviously exists, but I think it's a little bit overplayed. Like, I don't think it's this huge kind of animosity. I don't think these guys really hate each other. They're not going to be going in for 2-foot tackles on each other. There's not going to be no handshake or anything like that. There were a few flashpoints at Liverpool every now and again. That game against Burnley in August in 2019, I think it was, when obviously Mane had a bit of a straw up and everything, and Salah wasn't passing to him. But these guys were teammates for a long time, and they won a lot together. They're both winners, and they're both in great form. Salah scored 4 in 4. He's got an assist. Mane's got 3 assists, and he scored 1 already this tournament. They're both in the top 4 players in the competition for chances created on average per game. So they may be advancing in years. They may both be approaching their mid-30s, but they're both at it, and they're both desperate to win it. And I think that's going to be a fascinating subplot to this very heavyweight semi-final.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that. Even though they are advancing in age, that dog, you don't lose that dog, man. Like, they still want to go on and win.
Hope for all of us.
Yeah. Guys, can I get a prediction for the game? I know it's always bold to do this, but any predictions? Any way you think? I think it's going to go to
Senegal.
Senegal.
I don't think it's going to penalties. I think Senegal will win it by the odd goal.
Extra time? Full time?
Regulation time for me. I don't think it goes to penalties. I don't think it goes to extra time, sorry.
Senegal to get the job done. No. Okay, fairs. Let's move on to Nigeria versus Morocco. The heavyweight clash we were discussing just before we started recording. Colin, I'll start with you because Nigeria have, at the start of the tournament, we said they have to earn Mr. Udoh's trust. I feel like they've done that now. But we were at the ground against Cameroon, Morocco. The crowd was insane. That's going to definitely play a factor. What are your thoughts going into this game?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Look, first of all, I've got to say that, yes, they have earned my trust back. And if you remember, when I talked about this at the beginning as we came into this tournament, my thing is they've had so many opportunities, to show that, to make people like us. I mean, look, Ed knows I've always backed the Super Eagles 100% to the hilt, even no matter who they're playing against. So,
Ed's
yeah,
not sure, man.
yeah, no, he knows. He's just being. But I've always backed them every single time. But coming into this, the whole World Cup qualifying thing, games that they could have won that they threw away, easy games, simple games, and why it was not completely the players' fault. The administration had a lot to do with it, but it just got to the point where it just wasn't a reliable thing to say, hey, look, this team is going to go there and come away with a result. But during this tournament, they have showed that not only are they capable of playing great football, not only have they shown they're capable of dominating the opposition, not only have they shown they're capable of scoring goals, they've also shown that, they can clean up things like, letting in silly goals at the back. And so when you do all of that and you've got the results to back it up, you've got the numbers to back it up, I think they have earned back the trust that they lost. And that's why I said that, look, irrespective of what happens in this game against Morocco tomorrow, win or lose, as long as they play the same way they've played throughout this tournament and don't, capitulate, roll over and let Morocco roll all over them, as long as it's a tight game, it could go either way, they win it, they lose it, people are still going to keep believing in them, and I certainly will do. I just don't want them capitulating because they're Nigeria. Nigeria should not be capitulating to anybody, especially certainly not in Africa.
Yeah, I like that. That's fight talk for sure. In terms of the atmosphere, Ed, we've been out here obviously for the majority of the tournament. That home advantage is going to play a massive part of this game. I think we saw Cameroon. Well, I saw from my observation, Cameroon they shrunk a little bit just because of the sheer pressure from the crowd. How much do you think that'll play a factor in this game, man?
I think it will play a factor. Of course, you can't ignore that many 65,000 people in that kind of voice.
It was the loudest stadium I think I've ever been in, ever. It was crazy.
The big difference there, Bobby, against Cameroon was that they scored early. They scored after 26 minutes. And that settled the team. It settled the crowd. That carnival atmosphere kind of carried on. The enthusiasm was there. Everyone was feeling kind of pumped up. But at the other Moroccan games, when things haven't gone their way so quickly, that mood has changed very, very quickly. As a Tottenham fan, I know what it's like when you're playing at home and things don't tend to go your way, because it often happens to us very, very regularly, and the mood can very much change. And when it does change, when fans start groaning, when fans start moaning, when fans start getting on your back, when fans start getting distracted, then suddenly that home support and the fact that it's so many people in such a grand stadium, the fact you're probably going to have the heir to the throne, Prince Moulay, there, that can suddenly weigh heavy on Morocco. And we've seen that already. Against Comoros, they didn't score in the first half. Against Mali, they scored at the very end of the first half. Against Tanzania, they only scored after an hour. And those games were getting uncomfortable by the point they eventually scored, because of the fact that this expectation that the fans are so pumped up after they sing the anthem, but then the goal doesn't come, the dominance doesn't come. And I think if Nigeria can ride out that opening half an hour, if they can be composed and if they can keep Morocco neutralized, and I think they certainly have the ability to do so, I actually think that home support could turn against the Atlas Lions. Maybe Colin might correct me here, but I've never known a host team at a tournament who's been under so much pressure to win. This is even more than Brazil in 2014 at the World Cup. If Morocco don't win the title, this is a catastrophic failure, considering all they've invested, considering how much football has been brought to the heart of this kingdom's identity, how close Lekjar and the FA has been with King Mohammed, with the royal family, what it means for the World Cup, hosting, the relationship with FIFA. If Morocco don't get over the line, this is a disaster. And I don't know that there's been a host team who's been under that much pressure, had that much pressure on their shoulders heading into a semi-final. And that's why I worry the home support might not be to Morocco's advantage if they don't start well.
Blessing and a curse. What are your thoughts on that, Colin? Is there any other hosts that have kind of experienced this?
Well, not with all of these factors into play. I mean, when you look at host countries, Tunisia in 2004, for instance, we were there, and sitting in that stadium was almost like it's almost indescribable because the pressure. It almost felt like the stadium itself was alive, not just the people. So the pressure for Tunisia to go ahead and win that game was so high. Now the same thing in 2000 when Nigeria hosted. I think we played Morocco. It was in the group stage, if I'm not mistaken, and then but there was still pressure. Then Senegal in the quarterfinal. Look, that Senegal game was the pressure. You could, I mean, even those who were outside the stadium could feel it until I think Senegal took the lead and so on. And then Julius Agawa came in late and scored 2 goals, and then the final against Cameroon. So all of these things that Ed just talked about, the template that Morocco have built for their football, the football strategy they've since 2017 that they've started working on, the relationship with the king, FIFA, all of that, and then how well they've done so far at youth level, at women's football, and everything else. It just puts that additional pressure on these Atlas Lions to deliver that cup. Almost like it's going to be the crowning glory for all of this because look, winning the World Cup, everybody knows it's almost like a bridge too far, even though they've reached semifinals in Qatar. But winning the AFCON, that's only their second in the history, would definitely be the crowning glory of all of the strategic planning that Morocco have been doing all this time. So to lose in the semifinal, that will be the most heartbreaking thing for all of Morocco. And so it's going to be very, very difficult for them. And that's why I also agree with Ed. These first few minutes are going to be really, really decisive. If the Super Eagles can hold on and stop Morocco from getting the kind of early goal they got against Cameroon, then they can establish themselves in the game and actually bring their own authority to bear, because this is a really, really good Super Eagles team. Look, I said it in my post-game video against Algeria. I've watched this team for decades, and I have never seen a Super Eagles team play as good as this. They might not have the same talent as the teams of the past, like the 80s, the 1980 team, the 88 team, or even the 94 team, but the football they've played so far and the numbers that they've put up with it, this is the best football I've seen the Super Eagles play in a long time.
You'd even say that more impressive than Olympics 96, more impressive than the win against Spain in 98, for example?
Well, definitely. Now, the reason I say that is those games were one game each. So, for instance, Olympics 96, they've had a good game against Brazil, but even that Brazil game, they had to come from 3-1 down to win 4-3, and they were getting clubbed by Brazil. The same thing with Argentina. It was a back and forth with Argentina in the final. They had to come back twice to win 3-2. Now, in the group stages of 96, they struggled against Japan, they struggled against Hungary, and they barely got through. In 98, it was the same thing. They got a great game against Spain, then they lost to Colombia. So you had all of those hiccups. Now, in this tournament, so far they've played 5 games, and my word, all those 5 games have been almost as close to flawless as you can expect a team to play at a tournament.
Agreed.
Not Colombia, but yeah, I agree.
Now, very strong performances for sure. Ed, I want to ask you on the pitch. Obviously, there's definitely the crowd will be a blessing and a curse, I guess, in some sense. But on the pitch, where do you think the game is won and lost? Because there's some big names going out.
I think what's interesting is that these two teams both have quite patched up midfields because Nigeria are going to be without their captain, Wilfred Ndidi, who was suspended. He received a second yellow card, his second yellow card of the tournament late on, just before he was substituted against Algeria. And that's going to be a huge loss, both in terms of what he does tactically, what he does defensively, but also what he brings in terms of character, spirit, determination to that team. And obviously Morocco, they're without Unahi, Azzedine Unahi, who's a playmaker who Regragui said at the beginning of the tournament that with him playing well, we're a great team. Without him playing well, we're not that same great team. And he's out for the tournament now. So that limits, I think, what Morocco can do in terms of controlling the game, how much dimension they can have in that midfield. And also Unahi's midfield partner, Sofiane Amrabat, is also struggling with injury. He was back on the bench against Cameroon, but it remains to be seen whether he's going to be fit enough to take any part or what kind of part he can play against Nigeria. So you're maybe missing the 3 key midfielders across both teams for this match. And I think in terms of replacement, there's ability there. It'll be interesting to see whether Chell goes for Onyedika as maybe a more straight swap for Ndidi, or whether he plays Chukwueze starting in central midfield as he did for the opening game against Tanzania. I think I could see merits for both of those options. Personally, I'd go for Onyedika to give you that bit more physicality, that bit better athleticism to start off with against Morocco. Whereas Morocco have got El Khanous, who's a very talented young player, but he's not really, I would say, impressed so much at this tournament. So I think it'll be a big test for both those midfields, and whichever midfield gets the upper hand on the others, and I'd probably go for Nigeria in that regard. I think we'll have the advantage.
Game won and lost in midfield. How much of a miss will that be, Colin?
It's big. Look, it's interesting that just before this tournament and for the last year or so, fans have been calling for Wilfred Ndidi to be dropped for Onyeka or even Onyedika. And he comes into this tournament and he just becomes almost like the Ndidi of old and patrols that line in front of the back four so intelligently, so calmly, and so confidently. In addition to the leadership that he brings to the team, I thought the yellow card he got was needless because, I mean, he looked like he was injured. He was going out already. What was the point of wasting time and picking up a second yellow when you knew you were walking that yellow card tightrope? So I guess that's a black mark from me for him. But having said that, I think Eric Chell is going to stick to his 4-4-2 diamond, and if he does that, then the likelihood is going to be that Onyeka slots in where indeed he's supposed to be because he's the more defensive of all the other players, except maybe for the youngster Tochukwu Nadi. But I would be shocked to my marrows if he starts Nadi in an AFCON semi-final against Morocco in that cauldron because he's not used to it, not yet. So I'd expect to see Onyeka take Ndidi's place, and then Onyedika come in and take Onyeka's place on the right side of that midfield diamond. The other alternative might be to have Fisayo Dele Bashiru step into that place instead of Onyedika. But the concern with Dele Bashiru is he's prone to turning over the ball, and you don't want to be turning over the ball to Morocco in this circumstance. You want someone who can hang on to position and then, make sure that midfield control stays with Nigeria. So the way I see it, and I also take it from the sub that Eric Shell did right after Ndidi was booked. As soon as Ndidi got the yellow card, he took off Onyeka, which in a way was a way of preserving him from getting his own yellow card and missing the game. So the way I see it, if Shell sticks to his diamond, then Onyeka slots in there in the Ndidi spot and Onyeka goes the other way. Now, if he decides to go to a flat 4-4-2, that's where he gets someone like Chukwueze that Ed was talking about. But against Morocco, and with the way that game is going to be, I think Shell is going to want to keep midfield control the way he's done throughout this tournament. So going for a flat 4-4-2, I don't think it's going to happen. If it does, then we probably will see Chukwueze or Moses Simon come in.
We've talked about Nigeria's attack during the tournament, but I also asked Colin, like, the defense. I mean, a lot of talk at the beginning was about how nervy, jittery the defense was. Against Algeria, they got a clean sheet, and now the journalists here are kind of saying, well, we've proved we've got a fantastic defense. And I think there were a lot of good individual performances in that defense. But for me, I just don't think you can really rate them on that Algeria game, because Algeria were just not at the races. They were so poor. They didn't have a shot until 60 minutes. They had like only three shots in the whole game. But I think Morocco, Ezal Zuli, El Kabi, obviously Brahim Diaz, that is a very different test for this Nigeria back line.
Oh, yeah, I do agree with you. And look, the way I see it, both these two teams are facing their biggest tests of this tournament so far. Forget Cameroon. Cameroon locks their way into the quarterfinals. When you look at the preparations, the team they had, the players they left behind, the whole coaching situation, they were practically lucky just to get to where they were. The same thing with Algeria. Algeria are not the best of teams at this time. I mean, you could see the struggle with Riyad Mahrez. It looks like he can't even really keep up with the pace of that team anymore. He was practically not just there. Tunisia was not started, so it really wasn't the sort of test that Nigeria could have had at this time. And Tunisia also didn't produce enough of competition for the Super Eagles. So in that sense, both these two teams have not really faced quality in-form opposition coming into the semifinal. So now they're going to face the real test. Now, the good thing with Nigeria is at least they've learned to clean up that conceding goals at, crazy moment, because it doesn't matter who they face, they've considered again. The only team they haven't considered coming into this tournament was Rwanda over 2 legs. Everybody else they've considered against. And then they come here, consider against Tanzania, they consider against Tunisia, they consider against Uganda. So they needed to have that confidence of not conceding. And that's why Calvin Bassey got a yellow card against Mozambique, because when Fisayo Dele Bashiru came in and gave away that possession and the forward was, streaking through on goal, he kind of pulled him back just because he was almost like a PTSD. Look, I don't want us to concede again. So the confidence from not conceding against Mozambique carried over into the game against Algeria. And in many ways, you could say that, they didn't allow Algeria anything. So if they play the same way and not allow Morocco as much as others have allowed them, then maybe they might be able to keep them at bay for as long as possible. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet, but I think they will be able to restrict them, and then hopefully the likes of that lethal front three can find their bearings and get a couple of goals, because they've scored an average of 2+ goals every game at this tournament. So we should be banking they probably score at least one in the semi-final.
No doubt. Sorry, Ed, I thought you were gonna come back in there. My bad. I was waiting for the back and forth, man. I can't lie. All right, guys. Well, the game is happening tomorrow. It's all kicking off. It's about to be an amazing day of football in general. Predictions, then, guys. Before we move on, where are we going? Because it's a tough one to call this one.
Ed, you want to go first?
So they always say never change your prediction. I did predict Morocco to win the whole tournament, so I would be a little bit contrary if I predict them to lose now. However, I didn't foresee the Onahi injury, Amrabat also injured, the kind of slightly toxic mood in the crowd. So I'm going to flip. I'm going to switch sides. I'm going to change horses in midstream, and I'm going to go for Nigeria to win it and to silence the kingdom. Just because of that front three, no team have come close to finding answers to that movement, to that connection between Lookman and Osimhen, with Iwobi just loading the bullets. The running of Adams off the two of them, creating space. He's also handy himself. No team has found answers to that. And I think in the same way that there's a risk that Nigeria's defense could be found out, I think there's also a risk Morocco's defense could be found out as well, to be honest. There have been some nervy moments there with Roman Saiss injured as well. And so I'm going to go for the Super Eagles, which I know Colin will hate because he always says that I curse the teams I go for. So if you want me to change my mind, Colin, I'm not against that, but I would. But my heart is telling me to go behind my beloved Super Chickens on this occasion.
Why did you have to go and do that, Ed? Why did you have to go and do that? I was look. The reason why I let you go first was I'm hoping, okay, he's going to go for Morocco, so yeah, I will be fine. Now he goes and flips the script, and geez, if you jinx the Super Eagles, I'm coming to Morocco, and I'm coming after you.
Sorry. I'm worried I'm right there, because I think the atmosphere here will change dramatically if Morocco go out, and I think what could be a very special weekend will be a very damp and miserable weekend if Nigeria go through, even though I would love to see them in another final. But I'm wary that if that prediction comes true, the Nations Cup temperature could drop quite a lot.
Yeah.
Super Eagles fan, all I can say is who cares? Look, well, Nigeria are overdue for a fourth. Nigeria are way overdue for a fourth title. More than a fourth title. I mean, consistency. Next to Egypt, the Super Eagles have the most podium. Okay, the Super Eagles have the most podium appearances in AFCON history. Egypt have the most titles, but when it comes to most podium appearances, the Super Eagles have it. 16 to also Egypt 16. They've been to the last four all of those occasions, and they've shown remarkable consistency since they won the AFCON in 2013. Then they missed 2015 and 2017. The Super Eagles have been in 2 out of 3 finals since 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Ed, correct me if I'm wrong there, but yeah, I'm probably just mixing up my numbers a little bit. But the point is that the Super Eagles have shown consistency at AFCON, whether it was in the past or in the present. And so I think that when I look at the way they are playing, I look at the fact that they're only one of the four semi-finalists from the last tournament to survive at this tournament. And also I look at the personnel, and Ed has laid it out very eloquently, who they are missing and who they are not. And the strength, Nigeria's strength this tournament has been midfield for the most part. The battling of Onyeka and Ndidi, and the exquisite passing of the very press-resistant Iwobi, and then of course that front with the movement, the precision, everything. It's kind of hard to bet against them. Now, my worry is if they get in there and by some crazy stroke of bad luck or whatever it is, they let Morocco get a goal early in that game, then all better off the off the window. But if they either get the goal first and they can hold on to that midfield domination, especially with all the injuries that and absences that Morocco have, then I think that Morocco can score, but I think the Super Eagles can score more. So I probably would go for the 3-1 to Nigeria.
You're the only person who could use the fact that Nigeria have been in one of the last 5 finals to make a coherent argument that they'll be in the next final. But we'll let you off. We'll let you off. We know you're
well, look, I was just trying to give a background of some consistent to show you that this team is not one that gets intimidated, whether they are playing against their hosts or they're playing against another big team. And look, they've always come through. So they might not make it this time, and that'll be acceptable. But like I said, as long as they play the way they've played so far this tournament, even if they lose out by a small margin, that's fine. They're not going to get blown out. Hopefully not. So I do think that it kind of makes sense to look at the Super Eagles and think, hey, you know what, with the firepower they've got up front, if they can win the midfield, then they're always going to get chances. And if they get chances, you can bank on Seaman or Lukman or Seaman or Lukman to finish them. Akko is still getting there. He'll get there.
So a lot of goals, regardless. The first goal is key by the sounds of things.
It is very key. That first goal is going to be the most important of all.
Yeah, it could flip the crowd. So many variables in this game, man. I love it. It's going to be a hell of a game to be at. I'm very privileged to be witnessing that in the flesh. But guys, we'll see you on the other side of the semi-finals. My prediction, I'm going to lean with Colin, 3-1. I want to see the crowd silence.
You know, for the Algeria game, when I said Nigeria going to blow Algeria out, I got folks laughing at me. You know, I mean, even the two of you, even the two of you, not Ed, but
we were scared, man. We were scared.
Yeah, because you guys were like, you guys went like, what? And I'm like, look, if this team play the way they play, then I see as much as a 4-0 win. And if our core wasn't so profligate, then it would have been 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, it's true. So it's definitely going to be a great game tomorrow. And we shall see you on the other side of the semi-finals, guys.